Unlike most islands in the Indonesian archipelago, the modern name Flores was given by the Portuguese. It originates from Cabo das Flores, Cape of Flowers, the Portuguese term for the eastern part of the island. Flores is one of the many Wallacean islands, situated east of Wallace's Line and west of Lydekkers Line. These islands are particularly interesting because they have rarely, if ever, been connected by land bridges to either the Asian continent to the west or the greater Australian continent to the east. This prolonged isolation from the surrounding continents has significantly limited the dispersal of animal species to and from the Wallacean Islands. Consequently, during the entire Pleistocene epoch, Flores hosted only a small number of mammal and reptile species. These included komodo dragons and other smaller monitor lizards, crocodiles, several species of stegodon, an extinct close relative of modern elephants, giant tortoises, and various types of small, medium, and large-bodied rats. In west-central Flores, there is a large limestone cave named Liang Bua, meaning cool cave. The cave has been known to local people for thousands of years, although it was once feared. It was believed to be inhabited by the spirits of their ancestors. This large, shallow grotto measures approximately 50 meters in length, 30 to 40 meters in width, and 15 to 25 meters in height at the entrance. The cave was formed long ago by a river flowing through Miocene limestone and is now decorated with numerous small stalactites. The cave floor is covered with a thick layer of sediments. The large cave, with its legends and intriguing layers of sediments, attracted scientific interest early on. It was evident that research here could provide valuable insights into the prehistory of Flores. The first excavations were organized in 1950 by a Dutch priest, Father Theodore Verhoeven, along with Indonesian scientists, yielding significant findings. Verhoeven had a strong interest in archaeology, having studied it at university. While residing on Flores, he identified numerous archaeological sites and conducted excavations at many of them, including the now famous site of Liang Bua, where the hobbits of human evolution, Homo floresiensis, were discovered. Verhoeven was the first to report and publish findings of stone tools associated with stegodon remains in central Flores at several sites within the Soa Basin. He even suggested that Homo erectus from Java was likely responsible for making the stone tools found on Flores and may have reached the island around 750,000 years ago. At the time, paleoanthropologists largely ignored or outright dismissed Verhoeven's claims. Nearly 30 years later, an Indonesian-Dutch research team uncovered evidence in the Soa Basin that confirmed Verhoeven's original findings. This team went further by dating some of the stone tools and fossils using paleomagnetism, a method for determining the age of ancient sediments, and found them to be approximately 700,000 years old. These new findings did not gain widespread recognition within the paleoanthropological community until additional sediments were dated using zircon fission track analysis. By the late 1990s, more scientists began to accept the possibility that another human species, likely Homo erectus, had crossed the Wallace Line and reached Flores well before our own species, Homo sapiens, evolved in Africa around 200,000 years ago. In 2001, an Indonesian-Australian research team began excavations at the large limestone cave, Liang Bua. Professor Raden Suejono, Indonesia's leading archaeologist, learned about Liang Bua from Verhoeven and conducted 6 different excavations there from the late 1970s until 1989. All of this early work at Liang Bua only explored deposits within the first 3 meters of the cave floor. These deposits, dated to within the last 10,000 years, contain significant archaeological and faunal evidence of modern human use of the cave, as well as skeletal remains of modern humans. However, in 2001, the new goal was to excavate deeper into the cave's stratigraphy to determine if modern or pre-modern humans had used Liang Bua prior to 10,000 years ago. In September 2003, they found their answer. On Saturday, September 6, 2003, Indonesian archaeologist Wahyu Saptomo was overseeing the excavation of Sector 7 at Liang Bua. Benjamin Taras, one of the locally hired workers, was excavating a 2.2-meter square when the top of a skull began to emerge. 6 meters beneath the surface of the cave, Wahyu immediately joined Benjamin, and together they carefully removed more sediment from around the skull. Wahyu then asked Indonesian faunal expert Rokus Due Awe to inspect the exposed portion of the skull. Rokus informed Wahyu that the skull definitely belonged to a hominin, and, given the size of its brain case, was most likely that of a small child. 2 days later, the team returned to the site, and Thomas Sutikna, the Indonesian archaeologist in charge of the excavations, joined Wahyu at the bottom of the square. After several days, enough of the cranium and mandible had been exposed for Rokus to realize that this was not a small child. Instead, all of its teeth were permanent, indicating that it was a fully grown adult. By the end of the field season, the team had recovered much of the rest of this hominin's partial skeleton, the likes of which had never been discovered before. Today, this specimen is referred to as LB1 and is the holotype specimen for the species Homo floresiensis. The skeletal evidence suggests that adults of this species had extremely small brains, measuring around 400 cubic centimeters. They stood approximately 106 centimeters tall and weighed between 30–40 kg. For their height, these individuals had relatively large body masses, making them more similar to earlier hominins like Lucy, Australopithecus afarensis, than to modern humans, including both small and large-bodied individuals. The proportions between the upper arm, humerus, and upper leg, femur, also resemble those found in Australopithecus and Homo habilis more than those of modern humans. As additional postcranial material of Homo floresiensis was being recovered, Dr. Morwood contacted Dr. Susan Larson and Dr. William Jungas from Stony Brook University Medical Center. Doctors Larson and Jungas are experts in human evolutionary anatomy, particularly the functional morphology of the arms and legs. Dr. Larson demonstrated that the shoulder of Homo floresiensis is more similar to that of Homo erectus than to modern humans. Dr. Jungas identified many anatomical features of the hobbit foot that are shared with African apes and early hominins like Australopithecus afarensis. Additionally, Dr. Morwood invited hominin brain expert Dr. Dean Falk to analyze the endocast of Homo floresiensis. Dr. Falk identified several features in the hobbit brain that suggest neural reorganization despite its overall small size. The discovery of the Flores people was announced to the public in October 2004. At that time, The Lord of the Rings trilogy was very popular, and the newly discovered dwarf humans were nicknamed hobbits. There was even a proposal to name them Homo hobbitus. Another fascinating discovery is the 700,000-year-old human remains found in Manggarai Cave, about 75 kilometers east of Liang Bua. These teeth and jaw fragments belong to locally adapted dwarfed humans, likely still part of the Homo habilis species. It is highly probable that these were the ancestors of Homo floresiensis. It is somewhat suspicious that they disappeared around the time modern humans, Homo sapiens, arrived. It is tempting to assume that they were eliminated by the next humans. In Liang Bua, 46,000-year-old teeth, likely belonging to modern humans, have been discovered. During the exploration, several other fascinating discoveries were made, revealing that Homo floresiensis lived in unusual and often challenging environments. A significant local animal during this time was the dwarf elephant, Stegodon florensis insularis, which became extinct only 12,000 years ago. Stegodons, which lived in Africa and Asia, were generally larger than present-day elephants. However, as they reached islands, they became smaller with each generation. Despite this, Stegodon florensis insularis was not a small animal, reaching up to 2 meters in height. The dwarf Flores people might have hunted them, but stegodons were dangerous adversaries. Liang Bua Cave is the primary site where these remarkable animals have been found. Another unusual find is the giant stork, Leptoptylos robustus, with Liang Bua Cave being the main location of its remains. This bird stood up to 1.8 meters tall and weighed up to 16 kg. It was likely flightless. This large bird could have posed a threat to the dwarf people, as it was twice their height. In addition, marabou stork bones were also discovered in the Liang Bua Cave, on the same layer as H. floresiensis, suggesting that these hominids likely hunted these birds. Moreover, the island was home to several species of large rats, which were undoubtedly hunted as prey. 2 species have been identified in the Liang Bua Cave, the Flores cave rat and the Flores giant rat. The latter species still exists, while the former is believed to have gone extinct a few hundred years ago. Additionally, the cave contained remnants of komodo dragons, giant lizards, that still inhabit Flores Island. Numerous scientific articles have been published based on the analysis of the original skeletal remains of Homo floresiensis. However, excavations at Liang Bua and other sites on Flores are ongoing, with the hope that they will provide further insights into the enigmatic hominin species, Homo floresiensis, often referred to as the hobbits of human evolution.